Hi folks, Finn here from LocalGov Drupal. Just a quick demo of DrupalForge.org, which is a relatively recent platform to quickly demo, fire up and demo or test or even develop on a Drupal installation, usually from a Drupal distribution or a recipe or some particular pre-configured flavor of Drupal. If you go to DrupalForge.org, you'll see Drupal CMS is the kind of main demo to promote that pre-configured Drupal CMS for Drupal 11 and the sort of marketing angle of Drupal. Lots of other Drupal distributions and Drupal recipes to test out as well. But if you scroll on down, you'll find LocalGov Drupal, our very own quick launch to try LocalGov Drupal and the demo content. If you answer the quick maths question there, then it will start to spin up a LocalGov Drupal installation with the LocalGov demo content in the browser with DDev, with Docker behind the scenes to give us a playground in order to test, try things, demonstrate things, possibly even do some training. So we'll see it gives us an application URL, which I will click on, a login URL, which I'll also click on. Let's open those in new tabs. It gives us a username and password to log in. This will log us in as user 1, so give us a full access to everything in Drupal, not really aimed at content designers or particular roles, just the whole shebang. And it gives us an hour initially, but if you want more time, you can click on that plus to add more time to your environment. Importantly, it also gives us a cloud development environment, so we can click there to launch that and click on that link to open the VS Code, which is our code editor, our IDE, the open source IDE provided by Microsoft. That one has a slightly more random password, so I'll just go and start that process to log into there because it takes a little bit of time for that to build out and initialize. So meanwhile, the first page that I clicked on was the application URL. So this is the front page of our own little dev environment that we can play around with and break, and nobody else is relying on this. This is the default demonstration content for LocalGov Drupal. If we go to the login URL that it gave us, login with admin and admin, that will allow us to go in and do some content management. And have a look at the content structures and indeed any of the Drupal configuration. So this is all in the browser. This is all for free. This is all, if you're logged in, you can come back and fire up your environment again as well. And there's a bunch of FAQs on the site to illustrate, how cool this is and how it's currently funded by sponsorship. But yeah, it's really cool. Go and check out the site. Meanwhile, what is this particularly useful for? So say we want to test something in LocalGov Drupal. This is our default installation with our different types of content, directories, events, guides, etc. So we wanted to test something else that isn't currently on in our default code base. We can use the VS Code installation to run a terminal and to bring more code in, enable more code, and test different features. Do you trust the authors and files? Yes, I trust the authors because I do, because it's us. But also you can trust the authors because this is an environment where you're in control of what code you download. So this shows us our code base on the left-hand side. The web folder is the web root, inside which we have our modules and our contrib, and we'll see all the localgov _ contributed modules there. One thing we can do is fire up a new terminal by clicking on these 3 lines in the top left and go to terminal and new terminal. That will give us a command line terminal to run commands like composer to bring code in and drush to interact with our Drupal install, enable modules, clear the cache, that sort of thing. So fantastic bit of functionality there in the browser where anyone can spin up a Drupal site, specifically a LocalGov Drupal site, have a play, start to get used to the different structures of content types, have a look at the taxonomies or the other configuration of Drupal, and not be worried about the breaking things, because we could throw it away and spin up a new site. So just to extend the demo a little bit, let's have a look at a LocalGov Drupal contributed module that we might want to test. In this case, LocalGov Replicate. LocalGov Replicate adds the ability to replicate or clone content on your LocalGov Drupal website. So imagine we wanted to test this in our environment. Now that we've spinned up the VS Code environment, we can, and we've got a command line, we can copy paste that command into the environment. It asks us if we're up for allowing copy paste, so let's just say yes. So composer require LocalGov Drupal / LocalGov Replicate. This uses Composer, which is our package management system for PHP packages, to go away and grab the LocalGov Drupal / LocalGov Replicate module and any dependencies, such as the Drupal Replicate module and the Drupal Replicate UI. I think it's also updating a bunch of other perhaps Composer packages that it wants to install because we're in a dev environment. So that's why there's a little bit more going on there than just the LocalGov Replicate module. So this will get the code, it'll bring it down into our web contrib modules folder, web modules contrib folder, and we should see it under here. In fact, there it is, LocalGov Replicate. Maybe it hasn't got any code under there just yet because it's hasn't finished bringing down the dependencies. But once Composer has finished its dependency chain, we'll see the LocalGov Replicate code will appear in that folder there. Nearly done. Once it's got the code, we're just going to need to install that module on our distribution, on our installation, which can be done in two ways. Can be done either using Drush or can be done through the browser. I think what we'll do is just go through the browser. So let's have a look. Maybe need to refresh this actually. Sorry to tell it to have a look. There's our code for LocalGov Replicate, the module file and the info file. So if we go back to our logged in user and we're on the extend, if we just refresh this page, this is the list of all the modules that we could enable. If we search for replicate, there is the dependencies on replicate and replicate UI and our LocalGov Replicate. So let's tick that to install and tick the install. Now, having tested this before, I know that this has a few dependencies. Drupal warns us it's going to enable other modules before accepting that, just in case, for whatever reason, you didn't want to install those modules. That's going to go and install that module into the Drupal installation. And once it's done so, we should have an additional tab on our content pages saying clone to allow us to clone or replicate the content. So that'll take a little bit of time. Again, it's not the fastest at the moment. I'm not sure if that's always the case or if it's just being a bit slow because it's Friday afternoon. If we now go back to our content pages and click on edit one of the pages, let's edit a sub-site page, we should have an additional tab. We do in fact have an additional tab, says clone. So let's click on that tab to test the replicate functionality. So it's going to have a new name of that, brackets copy, to indicate that it is a different page. And I will click the button to replicate or clone the content. And indeed it has cloned the content and all of the paragraphs and layout paragraphs within it in this case. And we can play around with the publishing states or what have you. So there we go. There's Drupal Forge, amazing tool to rapidly spin up a demo environment, have access to install your own code, play around with it, delete it if you don't want it. And if you're logged in, paused environments will show up in your My App page where you can go back and re-establish them at a later point. So yeah, massive thanks to the Drupal Forge folk for getting our LocalGov Drupal up there, and yeah, go and play, and give us a shout in Slack if there's any questions. See you later.